The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the all-electric Prologue SUV, there's a lot that could impress you about it. There's the generous passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
New Icy Hot. Nighttime recovery. Relieves pain at nighttime while your body recovers. Icy Hot. You're so back.
Now, today's guest. Now, how do I explain this character? Easily in the 40 plus years I've been doing martial arts now, easily one of the guys that I instantly liked the minute I met him. He'll be embarrassed when I say that, but when you listen to him speak, you'll understand why. I don't know what way to say it. You know, two-time Olympian, two-time Paralympian, one of the best judokas I've ever met in my life. Easily, as I said, one of the nicest men you'll ever meet. Hull's best export since, I don't know, Kingston Rovers maybe. And I have to add that he is unofficially the greatest pork pie aficionado in martial arts, dare I say, in the world. Can you believe I'm going to say this now? Because I did congratulate you when you first got it. It's Mr. Chris Skelly, MBE. Yeah, met the Queen, I think, was it? Or did you meet the Queen, or was it Charles?
It was Charles. It was Charlie.
Oh, it was Charlie. So yeah, Chris Skelly. I tried to get you before you went to Tokyo, if you remember. So yeah. How many years ago is that?
God, years. Mick, I owe you for this. I do apologise.
It's all right, mate. You were too busy being like uber famous and strangling people and being a spokesman and being a figurehead for what we're going to talk about during today's podcast. Anyway, being a figurehead for the movement for inclusivity in judo and martial arts. But we'll start right at the beginning. Skelley, how did a handsome devil like you get involved in throwing people around and strangling them?
Firstly, Mick, I have to say a huge thank you for a wonderful introduction. If anyone does listen to this and loves pork pies, can you please send me gluten-free pork pies? Because I sadly gave myself celiac disease after inhaling quite a lot of pork pies after Tokyo. So, yeah, anyone listening, gluten-free. I'll explain that a bit later. But no, I started judo at the age of 5 alongside rugby. Surprisingly, Mick, you wouldn't believe it, but I was a very shy young man. Didn't make a lot of friends, was bullied a lot. Saw the world a bit differently because of my hearing impairment and my visual impairment, which I didn't realise I had at the time. And it was just a very difficult world to live in. And I'll be honest with you, I think judo and rugby was my escapism. You know what I mean? Was my kind of was my moment where actually I was making friends in a different way. Because as I said, I didn't really fit in at school, and school's a bit of like a jungle. You know what I mean? It's the fittest survive, and the ones who get bullied a lot. And I was one of the ones who got bullied a lot. And judo was my escapism, so was rugby. And I carried on that throughout school. Every evening when some of my mates were playing in the streets, I was on a judo mat or in a rugby pitch because I just loved it. And it gave me structure in my life. And as I said, I kind of left school. I wasn't the brightest person at school, but you know, I got decent GCSEs and I went on to trying to be a mechanic. But then that's where things started to kind of go downhill for me, really, and kind of really got tough for me, if I'm honest. And then that kind of stemmed the next part of my life where I went through a bit of hell, if I'm honest. But yeah, it was tough beginnings, but judo kind of kept me going.
Well, it's funny you said that because I remember the first time I met you, it was at a day class, and you had come down and you were at like the legendary, infamous Neil Bugger Simpkins. The legend indeed, yeah. And he used to have, well, Friday night was like, used to scare the Jesus out of me because I was surrounded by killers anyway, like be very, very remiss of me not to mention characters like Matt Nazar, Rich Edwards, Bugger himself, Charlie Simpkin, there was like Chaz Hendry, a lot of absolute killers coming down there to that mat. And then what was the guy's name? Matt, who was running, he was running the junior judo squad. He was our first guy to start bringing you judokas down on a Friday night. And literally, it was so funny because Neil says to me, he goes, "We've got some real killers coming down." He goes, "It's not the able-bodied guys you've got to watch out for." And I went, "What?" He goes, "No, he goes, you've got to watch out for these Paralympians." And I went, "What?" He goes, "Well, I got this one lad." He goes, "I don't know what's wrong with him." He goes, "He's ginger." He goes, "And he wears sunglasses." And I don't think that's a disability. I'm not being silly, by the way, but that was Bugger, yeah? Because you know what he's like.
I love it.
And Bugger's like, he goes, "He's ginger, northern." I went, "I don't think they're disabilities just yet." And he goes, "Oh, and he wears a pair of sunglasses. He looks like Bono." And I was like, right. He goes, "But when he gets hold of you, you're dead." And I was like, right. And then obviously Big Jack, who, remiss of us. Yeah, remiss to mention him. Like Bugger said to me, as a purple belt, if you can sweep him, you get your brown belt immediately. Now, I should say that Jack's 130 kilos, or was at the time?
140 at the time. He's lost a bit of weight now.
140. Yeah. So, as I said, you boys came down, and it was through Matt. I initially remember, and then you started trickling through doing daytime classes as well. You and Jack, and it was. For me especially, it was great to see you because I became profoundly deaf in my left ear at 42, and I didn't realise until as you mentioned earlier about it's a strange world you inhabit if you're visually or if you've got an audible impairment. I personally think it's almost as bad because I think it's actually worse because if you've got a visual impairment, people seem to say they seem to have a little bit of sympathy for you, but then if you tell people you're deaf, they go, "What? Pardon?" And you're like, "Wait a minute, that's actually taking the piss here." It's not. And they're like, "What? Pardon?" And I would say, "Yeah, you don't get a dog, you don't get a parking space." Having said that, if you're blind and you got a parking space, I don't know. There's something up. Maybe you shouldn't be driving. But anyway, it was like you boys used to make me smile because I'd take out my hearing aid. But you boys would keep the hearing aids in, listen to Bugger. And then I used to find it really amusing because both you and Jack then would take out your hearing aids. And then I'd look around and go, somebody's going to get absolutely hammered now. You know what I mean? Because it was like you had to take hearing aids out because you knew you were going to go to battle. But it was like, what drew you to BJJ? Especially because you hadn't hit the heights you'd hit. You were on that trajectory, Skelley, but you hadn't hit the heights yet.
So to be honest, Mick, I actually, by the way, it was GBWS1, which was like
WS1 Warsaw
nights as well, where it used to have a fog light where fog was everywhere. And I mean, literally, it was you knew we had a hard session where everyone was dripping, and then we always used to laugh because I used to have to make weight, and it was the most easy way of making weight for me. So I'd be like, I'm just going to go to GBWS1, and Neil would just hammer me, and I'd love it because I'd make weight so easy. What drew me to BJJ was that in Rio, I lost out for a medal, bronze medal, and that was gut wrenching, and it was really kind of hard for me to take. But just before the games, we started to come to Neil's club, and it was kind of started to kind of introduce to us, but then obviously with the Paralympics, you then have to prioritise that, and you kind of come away from BJJ a little bit. And at the time, I didn't really see the benefits of BJJ. And then obviously the games happened, and then I was like, why did I not win? So we did a lot of video analysis, and I realised a lot of my kind of opportunities went missing when I wasn't chasing it into Nawaza and into the groundwork. And then me and Johnsy had a chat, and we kind of knew how great Neil was and how great of a teacher he was. And I said to John, I think I'm just going to take it up. I'm just going to, when most people are resting in the evening after full-time training, I'm going to be doing the extras on the mat with Neil. And I honestly have to say, Neil introduced a whole different way of thinking for me and a different way of looking at Neil and the groundwork game. And I do say this, I think the BJJ really helped my progression and how quick I kind of climbed through the ranks. And I said, some really good memories on that mat, some really amazing people. But also, for me, BJJ was a escapism. I said it before, Judo was, but BJJ for me was escapism from the pressure of being a professional athlete. Because when I went to jiu-jitsu, Neil didn't really care about us being professional. He just wanted to teach us. And that's what I loved about it, just going back to the roots of enjoyment of martial arts. And I really do think that since, going with Neil, I wouldn't have reached the heights that I did because he added another level to my game. And with having I had a great coach, Ian Johns, as my Paralympic coach. I had a great S&C coach in Wayne Lakin. I had a great BJJ coach in Neil Simkin. I had a great psychologist in Andrew Cruikshank. I had a great masseuse who used to come around and help us. I had a great physio called John Prescott. So all of these people, that you build a team. And in a way, I looked at it like an MMA fighter. When an MMA fighter has like a striking coach, has a grappling coach, it has a S&T. And that's what I did. I just fought like an MMA fighter and started to build up my team around me. With obviously John Z had to be my kind of main point of contact because he's going to be sitting in the chair, but then using the other people's kind of knowledge to kind of pull it all in. And then, as I say, I think Neil also taught me to be a sponge a bit, like take it in, because not necessarily work for you, Mick, won't work for me. So I have to kind of make it work in my own way. And that's just drew me to BJJ. I just love it. And I still love it to this day. I do it, actually, I'll be honest with you, a little bit more than judo at the moment because I just love the grappling, the free flowing, the kind of, although it goes to the ground, it doesn't finish. You've got to finish you off. You've got to submit them. And in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's more ways to submit people now. So not only do I have to worry about my arms, my neck, I have to worry about my ankles and my wrists and my knees. So, no, I absolutely love it. And it really did add a massive dimension to my judo.
Well, it's so funny. It's so funny because you obviously mentioned my dear friend of decades now, Wayne Lakin, who he won't mind me saying I have to get Wayne on I did a podcast years ago with him, but I need to grab him again because he's really bitten the bug, and he'll admit that he got to 50, and it was really funny because he said I was really down, and and I was like, really? Because and I thought he was going to go down this route of saying, existentialist angst and hitting 50 and that's halfway to 100 and all of this. And I'm thinking, as I'm getting ready to drop some serious stoic level philosophy on him. And I said, so what was it? And he goes, I just turned around one day and I didn't have any fucking abs anymore. And I went, what? And he says, yeah. He goes, I looked down, the abs weren't there anymore. And he said, and I'd sort of fallen out of love with judo, a little bit of the politics and stuff. He said, but I just didn't feel like me. And I remember saying to him, I said, get back into BJJ, get into grappling, get back into grappling, but get into BJJ. And I went, you're in a winning position here, because if you go right, you're going to have enough to be able to survive those awful 3 to 5 years where you start off just getting hammered by everybody. There's like people who start jiu-jitsu who've never done any grappling, that they need to have their head looked at, because it's like you go there and you're basically getting assaulted like 15, 20 times a night and then coming back the next week. And it's like, so you've got that. But then what I also said to him was, I said, if you fail, it's not really a problem, because, okay, judo, jiu-jitsu, sort of the same, but that's like being a bricklayer and a stonemason. There's times where they overlap a little bit, but they're not the same trade. You know what I mean? And I noticed that when you first came up, it was really funny because you really did not care if people beat you or not. Like, you really didn't. That was one thing that always made me laugh, because you just came off. And I've got the same mentality, because I just really enjoy the art. They go, well, I beat you. And I went, well, not really. The only way you beat me is if I come off the mat pissed off and want to give up. I said, which is never going to happen. I just really enjoy this. It was like you were saying about Neil. I met Neil and I started training with Neil properly at 41. And he was like, well, I haven't got a blue belt who isn't a British champion. And I went, what? He goes, nah. He goes, you want to get a blue belt with me, you're going to have to like compete. And I was like, oh, I'm done with all that. And he was like, no. And then as soon as he won the British Open, the white belt, he goes, oh, you got to get in that blue belt. And I was like, well, what, is this how it works? He goes, yeah, well, you might as well do it. You're still able to do it. And it was like you're saying, he pushes you past, because we're all good at being able to motivate ourselves to a degree.
Yeah.
But then you need that guy that's going to kick your ass and say, well, I don't care if you dislike me now. You're going to have to do that. So I'd like to just, you mentioned Rio earlier. And I remember you coming back from Rio. And then, like, what was, if you can lay out a sort of like a roadmap to how you got to Tokyo. And then if you don't mind, I know I'm adding a little bit to this question, like obviously COVID hit. So what was it like going, because you competed, but it wasn't an Olympics really, was it? When you take crowds and stuff like that into account.
No, so that is a good point. After Rio, it was quite hard because, again, every athlete has to take responsibility of their actions. You know, like when I step onto the mat, you know, if it goes wrong, it's my fault. Right? That's just the brutality of it. It's not no one else's. You can't look to blame other people. I think these where athletes have to take more responsibilities. Everyone has given you the tools to go and win. Okay, but the only person who makes the decision in that moment is you. And if you make the wrong decision, you know, people say failure, and I hate the word failure. It's not. It's a learning. It's a learning opportunity. Because I go, I'm not going to do that way again. And if you get launched through the flying through the air, you go, I'm not doing that again, and you go and learn to do it a different way. If you get launched again, you go, I'm not going to do that way. It's just, you know, learning through making mistakes. And I think so many people are afraid to make mistakes. And I'll be honest with you, my career has been fraught with mistakes. But do you either use them and go, I'm going to give up, or do you go, actually, I'm going to learn how not to do that? And that's what I used it as. And then my kind of thought pattern changed. I did start to work with amazing psychologists who helped me kind of process that and understand that actually it's not failure, it's just another opportunity to learn. So he helped me with that. And then I just ran with that. And, you know, things started to change for me. Thinking like that, bringing in the BJJ, bringing in a bit of wrestling as well, which we used to do at the centre. All these things started to kind of add up to me and results started to come. So I became European champion in 2017. I gained 2 more medals out of the Worlds in 2018 and 2019. I became world number 1 in 2019. I gained another European medal in 2019. Like, things just started to take over. And then 2020 happened. And I was like, right, this is the year. I'm world number 1, going in confident, got all the belief in myself, knowing that the hard work is being done every day. And then when I step on that mat in Tokyo, it will happen. And then obviously COVID happened. And yeah, that was a hard one because at first they were like, oh, it's postponed. So, okay, you process that. And then rumours were flying around that it was cancelled. Then you go, oh my God, I've worked for the last 4 years, it could be cancelled. And then the rumour came back around that it's going to happen, but a year later. And I'll be honest with you, at the time, I isolated with my wife, my partner at the time, wife now, Louise. And we just we both kind of broke into tears a little bit. She did as well, because, you know, there was so much hard work from herself, because she's a very, very, very successful wheelchair tennis player. She put a lot of hard work into getting there and getting herself in a good position. Then I put a lot of work as well into kind of getting myself in the best shape of my life. And then it just got postponed. And then I'll be honest with you, Mick, 2 ways I deal with stuff. I'm an eater, you know, so when I get upset, I eat. So, and my kind of poison of choice of poison is pork pies. And I just literally, Louise put a shop in, delivery, and I got her to deliver some pork pies, and I smashed a whole pack of them whilst crying. And then I had a conversation with my coach and my teammates, and then we kind of processed the situation, because, you know, this has never been done before, never have. So you have to have an honest conversation with your teammates and your coach. And we all just sat together and we were like, yeah, it's a not a great situation. It's not the best. But there's 2 options. You give up and you cry about it and you move on and you just don't go to the Paralympics. Or you positively reframe it and go, you've got a year to get even stronger, fitter. heal up the little injuries that you pick up on the tour of fighting around the world. And we went down that route. All of us just kind of bought into what we were talking about, and then that's how it kind of changed,
Yeah.
But the thing is, there was no manual on how to do this because it's never been happened before. So we were let back quite early because of professional athletes could go back under strict supervision, and we were kind of the first ones out of that. And again, that's a hard thing because like you're opening yourself to this real dangerous disease, and dangerous things for killing thousands of people. But the kind of dream of becoming Paralympic champion, I would put my life at risk, but also my partner's life at risk. And judo is a very contact sport, so it is very dangerous. But it was just the will of becoming Paralympic champion and the opportunity to represent my country again at the Paralympics. And then 2021 came around, and then we found out there was going to be no crowds. So then a bit of you as well has to go, oh God, none of my family are going to be there. None of my mum and my dad. But again, really honest conversation with our coach. And he said, let's be honest, you would never see any of your family or friends anyway before you fight. So this doesn't affect you. So we just immediately made it into a positive. We stay focused. We keep working hard. We keep pushing forward. And like we started towards the back end of the competition, so back end of the year, like towards 2021 before the games, we started to compete again. And like, again, that is quite scary because you're not competing for 18 months. It's been up and down with judo because if someone tested positive, you'd have to shut the centre for 2 weeks and train from home. So like all these things were going up and down like a roller coaster. And my 2 performances before the games were absolutely shocking, Mick. Honestly, like they were the worst performances I've ever done.
Wow.
And it was, but I saw medals, but they weren't like solid performances. They were like scraping through. And a bit of me just kind of, after the second one, we got an absolute rollicking from our performance director, Nigel. And again, I just cried. I mean, I was in floods of tears. And again, I came home. Louise got me a Domino's. I ate Domino's in the bathtub whilst crying. Like my wife was like, it was an absolute scene because of the fear of failure. Because I put so much hard work into this. This is the one moment you're building up to. And then obviously 7 weeks before the games, I isolate myself away. We weren't allowed to train at Gracie Barra either because of, you couldn't, because I didn't go to BJJ for at least 18 months because of, we were allowed to either train at the centre or train at BJJ, and we had to make a decision. And obviously with the games coming around, you have to train at the centre. So all these decisions, and I had to isolate myself away from everyone, 7 weeks away from family, friends, just by yourself. There's you and your housemate, but then my housemate got COVID, so he had to leave me. So I was by myself for 7 weeks, just like trying to keep fit, training. And then the games came around, and then my biggest competitor in that category got sent home because he beat up a security guard, and he got COVID, and he beat up a security guard. And then everything just was like, I heard about this story and I was like, oh my God, this is my chance. One of my biggest competitors is being sent home. Like, this is my chance. And I remember a funny call, my judo coach, and he called me up to tell me the news, and he went, right, pressure on you now, son. I was like, thanks for pointing out the obvious. But that's how we have that relationship where he's bluntly honest with me. And that's, and either, again, you fight or flight though. You give up, or you go, actually, I'm going to go and prove people right that why I'm world number one. And honestly, that day was one of the best days of my life. Even though my family weren't there to celebrate with me, it was like, this is still amazing to stand in that rostrum, just with all the stuff that I had to go through when I was a teenager, of understanding my disability, not being believed, being called a psychotic, all these things happened as a teenager. To be stood on the podium in Tokyo in God Save the King was one of the best moments of my life, because if I could tell that 18-year-old who dealt with all that you will be fine, you will get through this. I wish I could. I'd go back in time and just show him what we're going to win. So, it was a massive journey, and to stand there on top of the roster was amazing.
Well, it's funny you said that, because you said you were alone, but we had literally watch parties. Yeah, it was like in the WhatsApp group, because you're in the WhatsApp group. Yeah. The WhatsApp group is like, Skelley's on now, and it's like, who's watching it? And then it was like, it was wonderful to see. Again, it very surreal because it was like watching the UFC when they went to fight Ireland.
Yeah.
And yet you forget that the crowd really make something out of it.
Yeah.
So like I know a little bit, but I've never spoke to you about this because obviously you had Tokyo, no problem. Then Paris was coming up next, right? For games, right?
Yeah.
And so that came up, and then I don't know if I read this right or wrongly, but was there some sort of change in literally like criteria of like what actually is a disability? Because that's like I remember looking at it, and I'm not on about you, by the way. I'm on about it was the whole of the Olympics in general that there was some sort of change in regard to criteria. Or did I read that correctly?
No, you did, Mick. So what they're trying to do now in the Paralympics, they're trying to make it sport specific. So after Tokyo, the categories changed. So gone away of the B1, B2, B3, and there's J2, which are visually impaired like myself, and J1 who's fully blind. And I come under the J2 category. You have to hit certain criteria. I hit all the criteria, tick boxes. You have to do this, do everything, because British Judo do everything correctly. Go for all the right people, get the top ophthalmologists, get the top classifiers in Britain to do all our classification. And that happened, and I went into J2. I did a weight category change. I either went up to under 90 kilos, which that's a big drop. And I'm a big guy.
That's a big drop.
That is a huge drop in fight terms. And I naturally weigh about 105, 110, about that. Yeah. And then or go up to plus 90 kilos where you just fight unlimited. So you can fight anyone from 91 kilos to 180 kilos.
Yeah.
Even 200 kilos at one point. And the heaviest I ever fought in that cycle was 174 kilos, which is like, so it's me plus another small man.
Yeah.
That's a big boy. And he wasn't taller than me either. He wasn't like, I was taller than him. He was just wide. And I remember trying to throw him with my favourite throw, Tomanagi. And when your foot just disappears. And I was like, I'm not going to get him off the floor yet. So I knew I wasn't going to lift him because he was so heavy. But it got him into the Neywaza, into the groundwork, where I could just rip his arm off. You know what I mean? So that became the fight plan, is to get him into the Neywaza, rip his arm off. Because he left his arm, because he was so big, his arms would come up. And that would just be easy for me to slip my hand through and then rip his arm off. But again, the categories changed, the classification system changed. And it changed for the right reasons, because, a lot of countries, I have to be careful here, a lot of countries mess around with the system. Britain is not one of them. Britain do it all right. We have a fantastic system in place where you have to go through national classification, you have to go through seeing ophthalmologists and British classifiers, then you go to IBSA with all the information and they classify you. Some countries are renowned for bringing presents to classification. Some are renowned for waiting for the right classifier to be there. Some are, you know what I mean? So, and it's hard because the ones who are right and the ones who should be classified get put into that kind of bracket where they think everyone's cheating. And it's wrong because, for example, last year I had one of the toughest years of my life, not just on the map, but off the map, because everyone agreed that I should be classified. Everyone was like, right, he should be classified, but we need to understand his condition, a picture of his eye, and we want Chris to do X, Y, and Z. And did everything, but they still wouldn't classify me. They were still like, no, well, we need this now. They kept moving the goalposts.
Yeah. And
it was hard because not only did I question them, I questioned myself because, as I said, as a teenager, I went through absolute hell understanding my disability. Then they questioned me and then I questioned myself again. Then it brought demons up where my mental health took a massive dive again. And I started to think unpleasantly about stuff and not wanting to be here anymore, even though I'm married, I've got an MBE to my name, I'm a Paralympic gold medalist, everything was amazing. But what happened to me made me think like that again. And that was the hardest year of my life because I not only had to battle kind of the judo side, I had to battle myself. And like I always say this, the biggest battle I had to do was myself, because, you know, I question everything about my existence. I question even being here and wanted to be here anymore. And that's hard because I've got an amazing wife who I love dearly, but I just, for some reason, got to the stage where I just didn't want to be here anymore. And I wanted just to, walk away. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. And, you know, it was just difficult because no one would take responsibility of classifying me, even though they all agreed I should be classified. You know, even though everyone sat around the table and went, he should be classified, he's well in. And I was like, oh, brilliant. And then no one would put drops in my eye with my lenses in, because I wear contact lenses, Mick. And everyone in the previous few classifications, they refused to put drop behind my lenses. And I remember the last one before the games, like, this is in Georgia. And it was like a do or die moment. If I don't classify, I'm retired. That moves on. And it got to the stage where you need to look in your eye. And then one of the people, both classifiers, went, well, just put drops behind your eye. And I looked at him, and the guy who was with me also looked at him and went, you sure you can do that? I went, yeah, it's in the rules. I was like, wow. So it's the consistency with classification as well, which needs to be looked at as well. Like, one minute someone's telling me I can't, the next classification is saying you can. And for someone who struggles so much with their mental health and understanding his disability, and when people question him, it sends him into a spiral of depression and anxiety. That's not good. You know, they're just treated like cattle. And luckily, and with amazing support of British Judo and IPC and everyone like that, they did classify me, and rightly so. Everyone agreed I should be classified. But it was the hell they put me through to even be able to step on the mat. But I do believe there should be, what they're doing is correct. However, there needs to be a little bit more kind of kindness. I don't say kindness, but like a little bit of understanding about people's history and people's understanding that this could send them over the edge about the mental health. I think also there needs to be consistency in classification. And I also think there needs to be kind of tighter rules around certain countries that are known for these incidences. Last year was very hard, mate, because, you know, people would see me at BJJ. I think I'd be all right. You know, I'm getting ready for one of the biggest games of my life. But little did many people know, I was going through literal hell in my own head. Like, you know, Louise had to call me every day to make sure I was getting up in the morning. Like, I just didn't want to get up. I didn't want to carry on. And I picked up a knee injury because I was so stressed, didn't sleep. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating. And I picked up a knee injury. So not only did I have to battle that, I had to battle a knee injury, recovering from that. And then when I stepped on the mat in Paris, that was like the first competition I had in about a year. And that's it wasn't even the best preparation. It was not a great time, if I'm honest with you. But we came through it. And as I said, I had to beat the hardest person I've had to ever face, and that was myself. And I beat myself. And that's hard because he knows how I'm going to feel, what I'm going to do next, you know, what my decision making is going to be. That is the hardest person to beat. And I beat him. So when I stood on the mat in Paris, I was just like, yeah, let's go. Whatever happens, happens. I'm happy to be here. I know I can go win it. But sadly, Mick, that day, in any martial art, that's karate, taekwondo, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, they are so hard because you're facing an opponent. And you could be having a fantastic day, but that person opposite you is having an even better day than you. And you just have to go sometimes, winners
and learners. It's so funny. It's so funny you said it, because first of all, you know, thanks for sharing. I didn't realise that it affected you that much.
Yeah,
like, I've mentioned it a few times myself. You know, I've been there. Like, I've been there twice in my life. Well, 3 times really, but one of them I look back at 16. This is how OCD I am. So I had an episode at 16, an episode at 32, and an episode at 48. So it was like I'm doing these cycles. As I'm working on a 16-year cycle, right? But then I'm not. What it is, it's just the fact that we're pattern recognizing animals, and I want to make sense out of the madness that I was going through. And with me, the last time was 48. And I was just like getting up every day. And it's like, this will resonate with you, Skelley. You know, when you get up in the morning and you're like these really horrible, insidious thoughts, but it's laser focused. You know what I mean? And then when I managed to get out, like with me, I just use this too shall pass. And believe it or not, I've got given the shout out for it, which was Neil Simpkin, because Neil turned around to me and I made the big mistake of taking 7 weeks off training, right? Because I picked up a neck injury. I had some external things going on as well. Yeah, my father had been put in a home, and there was just a lot going on. But it wasn't one thing, Chris. It was a combination of everything. And it's really funny the way you were saying, because with me, my issue was I was going to set up a gym in Coventry. So it was the external stuff of like getting change of use. And then my mind was going off to mad things like, what if I'm not at the gym and some ruffians turn up and they upset my wife? And then it was exploded into this thing that would never normally happen. But I was thinking mad stuff. And then I remember just thinking, this too shall pass. And I went up to see Bugger, and Bugger says, let's just roll. Like, we'll go roll in, we'll chill out. And he got me back in. And it was funny the way you said it, because you said caring and understanding. And it wasn't, it was just to be cognizant of what people are doing, like, which is going to lead me into like they use furry terms and fuzzy wuzzy terms of inclusivity and stuff like that. I wish we could use better terms that didn't sound so namby-pamby. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, like, inclusivity is a good one to use, which is like I have to quote a good friend of both of ours, Rich Edwards, who was literally the first person that I ever met that was like that I saw as invincible. You know yourself, if you roll with Richard Edwards, it's like rolling with a car. You know what I mean? And he's remorseless. He's a killer. And I remember speaking to him about having some anxiety, and I said, I'm just getting up in the morning and wanting to kill myself every day. And it makes complete sense to me that if I'm gone, the world's a better place. Everyone in my life would be better off with me not being there. That's how mad my thoughts were. And he just turned around and he goes, you got to remember, nobody really knows the battle that another person's facing. And I looked at him like that, and I went, you sound like a man who's been there. And he goes, I deal with it every day. And you're like, and it's mad, because when you hear people like that and people like yourself say it, I know it sounds mad, but it's almost like you give them permission to, I don't want to use the term weak, but because I want to use a better term than that. But where you're just feeling a bit weak about it. And then you realize that you will get through it eventually, but it sucks. And that's going to lead me into like some of the work that you've been doing recently, like, because I know that you're doing a lot more teaching and stuff, but I know that you've been really, really like, vocal and instrumental in getting that sort of message out, I don't want to sound, the Gracie Barra jiu-jitsu for everyone cliche, but it should be for everyone. So how did you get involved in this? So,
by the way, like me, honestly, the problem is with mental health, it's not discriminative. It can attack you at any time. It doesn't care what you're doing. You can be having a fantastic year, but it'll still hit you. And this is the thing, like it's one of the toughest issues everyone has to face. Everyone will face it as well. Like, I never thought I'd face it, and I did. I faced it twice in my life. Like when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and when I was last year. And for me, I got to the stage where I just had to put my hand up. Like, it was one moment specifically where I just looked at a certain bit and I was like, I could just walk off that. And immediately something just like clicked. I was like, that's not you. And as soon as I did it, because I walked towards it and I stopped myself. And then I kind of, when you just kind of give yourself a shake and go, get out of it, what are you doing? And then I immediately just called up my doctor. I was like, I need help now. I need my help now. And she was like, are you okay? Because she was supporting me on it. And like, she was kind of helping me through classification, my mental health. And I said, I need to go back to counselling. Because I had counselling originally because of family stuff, family issues, and it really helped me. And I touched a little bit upon the subject, but never really went into it. And then that time around, I kind of just like, I need to go back to him. And they got me the help. And I always say to people, like, I was embarrassed because like of who, like, I was embarrassed and upset with myself because of like everything I had and everyone who loved me. And however, though, I got help to understand that it's not embarrassment. It's not. It's just understanding that it's what the way I was feeling was not. That's a normal feeling. Like if anyone went through that, that's a normal feeling. Like anyone would feel it. But you feel so embarrassed that you shouldn't be feeling that. It's a really mind-boggling kind of trying to get over it. And that's why I've really pushed hard, especially since retiring from professional judo. I really want to make sure people have something, because it doesn't have to be a martial art. It doesn't have to be karate, judo, BJJ. It could be gardening. It could be going out of a coffee with your mate. It could be walking your dog. It could be anything. Just have something that you can just escape what you're thinking. Have someone, because I was very lucky that I had an amazing wife. I also had an amazing counsellor and a psychologist, sports side. They helped me through that. I'm an amazing mum who did help, but this time around I needed them 3 people, even though she loved me dearly. But someone in your life, if you put your hand up, will come running. But the scary bit is admitting it. And if you can admit it and put your hand up and be brave, people will be there for you. People will be there for you. And that's why, I've gone very heavily into my mentoring, helping young kids, talking about what I went through and my feelings, trying to help other young people coming through as well, like the Paralympic potential guys. Because I think, this is something we will all have to face, and instead of facing it by ourselves, I described it as, 300 in Sparta, where you all have this big wall. That's what people need. If we face together, if we face them coming on, we will beat it. You know what I mean? But we can't do it by ourselves. And that's why I think it's really, really important. If people do feel like that, put your hand up. Put your hand up. Or message someone, message your best mate, could message your teammate, just talk to someone. Because everyone is going through it in their own way. And it's nice to have a community of people, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's why I'm really heavily involved in it now, because I want to help others get through that as well, And I'll be honest, Mick, it's still, even though I've dealt with it, it still comes and bites me in the arse sometimes. I still have a day where I go, oh, actually, I'm not feeling that good. And what do I go and do? I go and smash out a gym session in my garden. I'll go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'll go and grab my dog and walk him somewhere. Yeah. As soon as I know it's coming on, I can feel it. I feel it as soon as I wake up, I'll go and do something. And my wife will understand as well. She'll be like, go off and go and do it.
Mate, I used to call it the black dog. So I used to say to the wife, the black dog's here again. Because it literally, I could feel it coming on me. And it was so funny the way you were saying it. Because I think a lot about this. As I've said before, I read far too much philosophy as a young man. And I spend all day staring at walls, plastering them, right? So I get a lot of time to be able to reflect on life and stuff. And the one thing is, it's such a paradox, because we've never been so connected as a society in history as we are right now. If you've got a smartphone, you can literally contact anybody instantaneously. So why we've got so many people who feel so isolated and alone? And then it's like the mad thing is, it's like, you hit on something there. I like the way that you mentioned that. First of all, this doesn't differentiate. So you can be the richest person in the world, the most successful person in the world, but you have to live between your own ears, right? So that's one. But I truly believe that you need to lead a purpose-driven life. That's why I hate when I see people take the mickey out of people. Like if they, it used to be train spotting years ago, and then I go, right, but most martial artists I meet are train spotters. Like they're collectors of like ridiculous statistics, like skills that they never need. And like, why? Because they like routine. And like that leads me into now, you mentioned several times about Louise, right? And I know this because I read, I think it was a status that you put up, and it was about how you met. Yeah. And the start of your relationship. And I remember reading it and I was thinking to myself, like, and Skelley, when I say this, right, it wouldn't be a Hallmark movie either. One of those like 90 minutes, small town girl goes to the big city and all that. None of that. Like your movie, the way that you met sounds like something out of a movie. So can you explain where you were going? I don't know where you were going to or coming from, but I know I do remember the airplane part, and then I'm going to leave the rest to you, brother.
Yeah, so me and Louise met at the Paralympics. So she's a very successful tennis player, played at Wimbledon, played around the world, been to 2 Paralympics, London and Rio. And it was my first one, and at the time her second one. And Judo, when you qualify for a Paralympics, you have like a farewell dinner. We had it in Rio. We never had it since, actually, but it was a last farewell dinner, and you send her off to your Paralympics. And it's kind of like, she came onto our table because the tennis guys, they've got a huge team. We got quite a small team of 4 it was. So they put 2 of the tennis girls on our table. And what she did, I always remember, because there was Jack to my left, there was Sam to my right, and she was beyond Jack. And we love Sam Ingram, but like, you know, he was like tough on the young lads, and me and Jack were the young lads, so he was tough on us, and we were like trying to fight not to sit next to him because we were so scared about eating and spilling stuff down ourselves. And but I had to sit between Jack and Sam, and I wanted to speak to Louise, but we never got to speak. But on the way home,
don't mind me. Yeah, don't mind me saying, to be able to talk around Jack, there'll be an echo, right?
Yeah,
it's like shouting on a valley.
Hello,
hello. Yeah, he's a big old boy.
I'm over here. No, but I set the pigeon around, and it came back about an hour later. But no, so I actually never really got to speak to her. And then in the village, like, we competed in like the first 2 days, so we had like 10 days in Rio and we had like free accommodation, free food, and we just went out and saw Rio. Got a bit upset because we didn't get a medal or anything like that. And then on the way home, I bumped into Louise, and because my coach pointed her out, and then I just kind of was like, oh. And then I scared her on the plane. So she was watching, I think, was it Cloverfield or some film? And I just scared her, and she got really kind of scared, and then said some names towards me. And then we just started chatting. And because I dislocated my hip years ago, like 10 years ago, I dislocated my hip. It was a career-ending injury, but came back really quick for me. Like, one of the many other stories I could talk about. And I had to get up and keep moving because I can't sit for long periods with my hip. And I just kept going to chat to her. And then we talked, then we kind of messaged for a little bit. Then she went on like an America trip with her best mate. I went to her with my best mate. Like, we just kind of separated. And then keep messaging, and we met up a few times, and then she couldn't get rid of me. And I've been like a ball and a chain around her legs since, really. And it is weird because, like, you know when you meet the person, and I don't know how to describe it, you just know it. And I am one of the people who is incredibly in love, and I don't care who knows about it. There's a famous thing, you know, in Elf, when Elf comes in and goes, I'm in love, and I don't care who knows about it. That's me, basically. Yeah. And like, I'm obsessed with her, and I still am now, even though we've been together nearly 10 years. And, you know, we get each other though. You know, she's lived in a wheelchair all her life. I've got my visual impairment. I can get her anywhere around the world. If she needs to go up a hill, I go up the hill. If I need to carry her on my back and a chair in front of me, I'll do that. And she'll be able to describe stuff to me, read stuff out to me, tell me where things are. Like, I'm her legs and she's my eyes, and that's how we work around it. Although she wants to kill me after time because maybe I need the toilet seat or anything like that. But I absolutely love her. And she, you know, I do always say that she was a really good addition to my life outside of judo as well. Because I think so many athletes can get kind of income, like their world revolves around that sport. Yeah. And I think a really good friend of mine, Jonathan Drain, he was also on a team with me. He always said to me, like, have something away from judo. Like, you need something or someone. And she became someone away from judo. She just became my safe place. And we message every day and everything like that. And she helped me through really tough times. And she got it being an athlete as well. You know, she had to miss weddings, miss parties, funerals, really special occasions. She had to miss it because of her sport. So she got it. She did get it. And I say last year, she was the biggest reason that I'm still here. You know, she's the biggest reason I'm still here and kept me going. And, you know, I do credit her with, you know, her and my coach Ian Johns and my kind of team that got me to where I am today. You know, that kind of, and yeah, she's amazing. Absolutely.
every time I see anything on social media from you two, I do love it. Like I was, Skelley, I was the same. You know, within a week of meeting Annie, I knew I was going to marry her. And like 36 years later, and it was like, it is, man. I'll just warn you now, it just gets better. It's like,
it is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it just became a grandfather, and it's like I've said to people, I thought I'd experienced every emotion that a human being can have, and then as I said to my wife, I went, second time in my life I fell in love with a girl the minute I saw her. And that was like when I saw my granddaughter, and it's very, very bizarre because Louise does some keynote speaking and mentoring and stuff now as well, doesn't she?
Yeah, so she's helped me with my transition out of sport as well. So she stopped just before Tokyo. I think being a professional athlete, everyone knows when their day is come. You know when you need to step off the treadmill. Like the treadmill, you have to stop because of many reasons. And Louise just had that moment, and she took a step away from professional sport, and has since, commentated at Wimbledon, commentated at 2 Paralympics. She keynote speaks all over Britain. She now tournament directs. She mentors. She's kind of like a Swiss Army knife of jobs. And I watched her, and I have to say, she's had the smoothest transition I know of someone transitioning away from sport I ever know of. And she's been a mentor to me, if I'm honest, with my transition away from professional sport. And she's helped me to kind of make that kind of seamless transition that I feel like it's been. Although I miss the judo and senior lads, I don't miss the politics, the pressure, the kind of, the constant being away. Like, I'll say this once because I don't want his head to get any bigger. I even miss, Ian Johns, my coach. Right. It's kind of seeing him as well. Like, we did clash, and we didn't see eye to eye sometimes, but we had a good relationship. But every athlete has that moment when they need to step off, step off the treadmill, move on with their life, like move from a big pond to the ocean. And now I'm in the ocean, but instead of swimming by myself, I've got a wonderful lady with me who's helping me. She's already in the ocean. I've been swimming for bloody years. She's come back, picked me up, and carried on. And I was just going to say, like, because she popped up on, it was on BBC, and it was again, the one great thing about the Olympics and the Paralympics is this, like you'll know this, right? And I'm from a certain age where I remember when the Paralympics were like literally, it looked like it was being held at a municipal park. You remember it was like. And you looked at it and you were like, I was quite embarrassed to see it. And then we as a country have to take credit for this, because, geez, man, the last leg is still going as a TV show from the 2012 Olympics, because that was the first time that they put it center stage and said, like, we're not just tagging this on at the end. Like, these are athletes in their own right. And then I remember at Paris, Louise was doing some commentary. And I turned around to Annie. I said, "Look, that's Skelly's wife's doing the commentary here." And it was like, it was that whole, without sounding, insulting in any way, shape, or form. The bit where, it's the best way to explain it is now people will understand that a female football pundit, like, I'm going to be a bit topical here. Sometimes a female pundit is probably a better choice than Gary Lineker at the moment. You know what I mean? It's like they know the sport inside out, and they're there on their not to make up numbers, but to really, like, because they've got an insight on what the sport's all about. And I remember seeing it, and I saw Louise, and I was like, fair play, because that's one of the things, like, this is going to lead me on to with you. Like, when you first came back from Tokyo, I said to you, dude, I don't know if you got an agent, but you got an agent. I want to see you on Dancing with the Stars. I want to see you on Strictly. And you were like, I've got 2 left feet. And I was like, look, man, you're a judoka. If there's anybody who can learn the Charleston, it's you. And you weren't. And I was like, I remember saying it to you. I was going, look, man, I'll feed you in pork pies. I can't remember. I was coming out with some bullshit anyway. But like with you, especially, I get like, because you are a real likable guy. Like I always thought that there'd be a transition into a little bit of media stuff, but more importantly with you, like writing a book, doing a podcast, being able to be a
I know you'll say that you'd be the last person to want to be a spokesperson for it, but to have the difficult conversations that, like, me and you just talked about mental health, and I don't know about you, but when I was in the middle of it, I couldn't talk to anyone about it, and now that, like, you have to be very respectful of the fact that it can come back and get you any time. But the longer it goes on, it almost becomes like an anecdote. You know what I mean, Skelley? Where you go, look, I've been there, like, I got through it. Trust me, it sucks at the moment, mate, but you'll get through. And like that's where I've always seen your role between you and me and you. As good as you were as a judoka, being a guy who goes, well, look, I did it. If I can do it, you can. Because you'll be like, look, I'm half blind fella, half blind ginger lad from Hull. I said, come on, man. Yeah, I had a few things going against me. Yeah, you're not ginger. You're strawberry blonde. We talked about that before.
We go down to my roots and white, but like, no, I would. Yeah, I'd love to do. Like I always say, I wouldn't do straight. I'd love to do I'm a Celebrity or Taskmaster. Have you seen Taskmaster on Channel?
Yeah, love it. Yeah.
Love it. And I reckon I could smash that. I could win that. If Alex Horn's listening, get me on your show. But no, I'd love to do like things. Dancing, I am not a dancer. No, I am a dancer, but I'm free. I can't do Charleston. I'm more free flowing, Mick. I'm more like, give me a tune and just let me go. Like BJJ, flowing. And that's what I'm like. But give me a routine. I'm shocking. But I'd love to kind of talk about and go. I want to kind of just spread the word. I'm like doing podcasts with you. Doing interviews, just to kind of keep reminding people that, ask if you need help. Like it's such an easy thing, but a hard thing at the same time to go, I need help. And I want to kind of keep helping people and showing people that can be done. I'd maybe do some punditry. But the problem is, I can't read scripts and I can't read. I'm awful. Like, give me a minute. It'd take me about 5 hours. But speaking from the heart, I can do all day. Like me and you now, I can speak from the heart. But like when someone puts a script in front of me, I just like lose it. And like Come Down With Me. I did Come Down With Me just before Tokyo. Yeah. Brilliant program. But what it would get you to do is say something. I say something just off the cuff. And they'll go, what did you just say that again? And I'll be like, what did I say? Yeah. Like, what was that? So, I'd love to do some other stuff, but just see what the world holds for me, like, you know what? I did my first BJJ competition a few months ago and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I've never done it before. So again, it's just trying new things. And, it's like, it's weird because I get to reinvent myself at 31. And like, you can reinvent yourself at any time. Anyone can. But like for me, it's like coming out with something that I know so well, and I'm okay. I do pretty well. To go, actually, I'm done with that, and now I want to go and do something else. So it is a little bit scary, and it's a little bit like, what the flippy doop do I do? Yeah.
Well, you see, it's funny you say this because I just posted something at the weekend where I was just I could have said it was martial arts as a gift that keeps on giving. But I said it was life as a gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, I went. My son, you remember my son Jack?
Yes,
so great guy, really good teacher. That's his job. He's a history teacher. Well, he's deputy head now at school, but he's a very, very good teacher. And I'm biased, but he's a lovely, lovely bloke. Yeah. And we've been I had personally, I got burnt out last September. Just too much. I was doing too much of everything. And it's funny you were saying this because reinvent yourself at 31. Like I'm 56, so that's like 25 years older. And I'd see you in certain ways as my senior, especially when it came to like tachiwaza and just generally your outlook on life. You're an old soul anyway. I don't want to age you but it was like I put
been around the block.
I've been around the block a few times. Right, yeah, it's not your first time here, not your first rodeo, but yeah. So September I got burnt out a little bit, so I had to take a bit of time out, and then without boring the listeners, Jack and Emma were expecting their first baby, so did a load of work on the house. So I had all of this. So jiu-jitsu went on the back burner for a little bit, and it's literally only in the last month or so that I've actually got myself back to it. So, Jack rang me and he says, "Oh, do you want to come training on Saturday morning?" And I was like, yeah, definitely. And he goes, this might colour your judgment, Dad. He goes, I'm teaching the class. And I went, what? And he'd never taught jiu-jitsu before. And I was like, oh, unreal. And I'll tell you now, Skelley, it was unreal because I came out, it was profound because he taught, you know me, I've only got half guard, right? So I've got a good half guard game, but I've only got half guard, right? But then again, a lot of people don't even have that. So anyway, I'm happy. I'm happy with that. And I went there and Jack played a deep half. He did an hour of deep half. And it was wonderful because his details were amazing. The way he got it over was amazing. And I put a thing afterwards that said that life is the gift that keeps on giving. And I said, you know, every time you think you know everything, then you realise, and I've been saying this to a few people, my age especially, if you're going to go into jiu-jitsu, be prepared to have a lot of your seniors and a lot of your teachers to be a lot younger than you. And so your ego might not be able to take that depending on who you are, first of all. But it's a young man's game, as you know. You'll know this now. If you try to go back into judo, you'll be like, right, okay, so now I'm not Chris Skelly, the judoka anymore. I'm the coach now. I'm Mr. Miyagi, not Daniel LaRusso. And it was unreal because it was going back to it. And like the reason I said all that, the preamble, was because I had to redefine myself as a student again. And the problem with being a black belt is you get to be a black belt and you can fall into the trap of teaching too much and not training enough. And it's not the ego of getting beaten up by blue belts, because guess what? Some of those blue belts out there now, you know, come on, you're Chris Skelly, you're a purple belt, right? But you're still Chris Skelly. That's what you got to remember, right? And jiu-jitsu is very funny because the belt shouldn't define the person. I think by the time they're a blue belt, depending on, like, well, you know this, they've got a whole generation of guys coming through that would rather do jiu-jitsu than have a girlfriend. Like, that is bizarre to me as a 56-year-old construction worker. Like, you're more interested in rolling around the floor with a pair of pajamas on than having a girlfriend. But they are. And it's strange times. So tell me, Chris, we're going to sign off on this. First of all, right, I know that you've started teaching. So a little bit on that, please. But what I'd like is just plans for the, and I know you're the guy who says you haven't got a plan for the future, but I'd like to see where you'd like to steer it, mate.
So that's a great question. Like, I think everyone is, no matter what belt you are, and this is why I love martial arts. So, like, you know, I'm a black belt in judo, purple belt in BJJ, but you will constantly learn. Like, I said it this morning to someone. Like, I went to Japan, Kodokan, home of judo. Absolute beautiful place. And there's a 95-year-old on the mat throwing people around. Absolutely. You will never, ever stop martial art. Martial art is a way of life. Through judo, BJJ, you'll always do it. You know, I want to be rolling when I'm 90. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Got my belt. You know, some kid comes over to me. I don't move much, but occasionally I'll bang on an arm. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's going to be me. But you're always going to be a white belt in life. You're always a white belt. I don't care if you think you know life, you know what you're doing. You're always going to be a white belt in life, because life is the biggest competitor you'll ever face. You know, you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what you're going to face. My plans for the future is, I'll be honest, Mick, it's to help others now. I think, you know, I said this before, gone are the days of being an athlete. Being an athlete, you have to be selfish, you have to be focused. You miss loads of stuff. You miss, you know, like doing stuff and everything like that. Gone are them days, Mick. You know, now is to give back. Now is to help. You know, like for me, if I had someone like myself helping you through that period, that'd be really, really, really important. Like, so I want to help that little 17-year-old boy who is struggling for whatever he's struggling. That could be through disability, that could be through school, that could be through college, not knowing what he wants to do in life, or he's just had a bad start to his life. I want to be there for them sort of people now. I want to help them through their period of life, help them achieve what they want to achieve, but also spread the message about mental health and spread it around the world, knowing that, you know, it can attack anyone. It's not prejudiced. It will attack you when you least expect it. That's another thing. But the other thing as well is just to have absolute fun. You know what I mean? And like, I feel very lucky. I say reinvent myself, but also I've kind of come through the fire. You know what I mean? And I feel very lucky to come through the fire. Again, I know I might have to go through it again later down stage. That's fine. I'm ready for that. But at the moment, I just want to go and live life, live with my wife, live with my dog, live with my mates, go and see everyone, and just have fun, because I think, so many people in the world get so kind of bogged down with what they're going to do next and everything like that. And I mentioned it before about the flow, VJ love flow. I'm just going to go with the flow. And if something goes in that direction, I'm going to go follow it. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go back to flowing again. And if something else might come up, I'll go flow down direction. So I've actually got no plans specifically, but, I think the main thing is just helping people. That's what I'm going to do now. Help people, help them, and just live life to the full.
Oh, mate, what a way. It's like, I heard a great quote years ago, and, where people turn around to life and go, you got to remember, sink or swim. It's sink or swim. And then I remember hearing a Brazilian going, sink or swim. He goes, you ever tried to surf? And immediately I was like, whoa. And he goes, yeah, those surfers seem to be having some fun, you don't try and control that wave. And I was like, wow, man. Not having said that, he was pretty profound there, but then he ended up being a bit of a rat in other ways. But then that's the other great thing about martial art. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the mad thing.
Palm tree.
Yourself, Skelley. It's like this: you meet guys who can be black belts in one discipline in life and then white belts in others. But mate, I tell you what, I'm so glad. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm so glad it's taken 5 years to get you finally. But bro, it's so good to see you. When will I see you back down this neck of the woods? You're going to be at Wayne Lakin's?
I'm going to go try and come up. Yeah, I'm going to try and see Wayne at one point. I'm looking to see Neil as well. I've not seen Neil, and I need to see the guys there. It's like a family, even though I'm not there much. I keep in touch with everyone. I'm still part of the group chat. It's you make families all around the world with martial arts, and I'm very lucky to have lots of different families.
And you're based in Swindon now?
Yeah, so I live in Swindon now with my wife, and I train at Gracie Swindon with Lucas and Daniel, who are two fantastic coaches. They're from Brazil, so they've helped me to kind of see a little bit differently as well to what Neil's study. So again, being a sponge. Oh, and I do sometimes go to Roger Gracie as well. Their HQ in London, they've got a wonderful gym there. So yeah, I'm just travelling now. I'm just seeing what.
I'm doing exactly what I'm doing at the moment. Is I'm just where I can drop in. I drop in. I'm trying to make jiu-jitsu for me again. You know what I mean? I found for a while there, I didn't know who I was, what I was doing. But to tell you the truth, I'll tell you this. I had a period where I actually thought it was going to, I don't want to use the word trigger, but I did think it was going to set me off because I didn't know who I was. And I felt like the only way I can explain it, and on a young man like you, it will be lost, right? But some of the guys who are listening will know. I felt like an old man in a nightclub back in the 1990s, where it was like, you're 45 years of age, mate. You shouldn't be here anymore. You know what I mean? It was like, and that's how I felt about jiu-jitsu for a while, because I was trying to hang with young athletes. And it's quite paradoxical because some of the people that I felt most comfortable with were like yourself, like Wayne Lakin, guys that I would never normally be in the same room with. Like I will sign off on this myself personally. One of my greatest moments ever in martial arts was the first time I ever rolled with Wayne Lakin, and Wayne turned around and he went, Jesus, he goes, I didn't realise you were that good. And people talk about the imposter syndrome thing, and I've always told people to get over themselves. But the problem is, you do have a little bit of that, yourself, yeah. And then for someone that you really respect, and I was like, really? He goes, oh yeah, mate. He goes, and then obviously within 2 rolls, he'd figured out my whole game, and then he was just torturing me whenever he wanted. So but I did for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes there, Wayne Lakin really, he rated my game. But Chris, as always, mate, I've said this every time I've ever spent time with you. You enrich my life just by hanging out with you, and I really do mean that. You were easy, because you were a young kid when we met, but you're easily one of the most down to earth, likable people I know, and I really mean. And it's not an act, because you can't sustain an act as long as you've sustained this, and I really do mean that. So wherever you go, mate, sprinkle a bit of that magic, mate, because you got plenty of it. All right, brother?
Thank you, Mick. And Mick, thank you so much for letting me on your podcast. It's been hugely great. And Mick, yourself, you're an amazing man. I'm very lucky to have you in my life, mate. So thank you. Mick, keep being a legend.
Yeah, ditto, mate.
Keep being a legend.
All right, see you later, brother.
See you later, brother. See you later, mate. See you later, Will.
Bye.
podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
When we started writing our thoughts down on paper, it opened up endless possibilities. Ideas could grow beyond the borders of the mind, and it changed the world. Somewhere along the way, we lost touch with paper, distracted by devices made for every purpose except for thinking and focus. On edge, waiting for the next notification. But what if new technology didn't pull us away from paper, but brought us closer to it? Listen. That's not paper. It's the sound of the new Remarkable Paper Pro, rewriting the future. A paper tablet with a true color ink display, gentle reading light, and unheard of tactility. With digital features for taking notes, thinking, and organizing, without any distractions. Paper is about to change the world again. Get your paper tablet at remarkable.com today.